Morning, everyone.
Morning.
First and foremost, I want to thank God again. We have 2 deputies that are going to be able to spend Christmas with their families. It was a very rough situation for them yesterday, but thank God again, they're safe. Thank for the community. Everybody's safe. There's nobody harmed. There's nobody in harm's way. So I can tell your sheriff's office, working with fire rescue, emergency management, JTTF, FBI, ATF, Homeland Security. It was a truly team effort. It was unified command out there. We worked together. We did what citizens expect us to do. Let's work together. To the neighbors and the citizens out there, thank you. I know it's never easy when we're out there. I know it's never comforting sometimes with blocking down roads and everything, but thank you very much. The management company out there was great. All the citizens did an absolutely fantastic job. The one thing I want to put out there first and foremost, I'm going to clarify a lot of things going on, so I'm going to put that out before I go through the scenarios about what happened last night. We absolutely were investigating this from the beginning. Was there ties to terrorism? We wanted to look into that. There is nothing that we found at this point that would make us link to believe that he's associated with a cell or anything to that nature. But let me make this also very clear. This is an extremely dangerous individual. This person had the potential to do bad things. And as you'll see in this video, as you'll see going forward, when you attack law enforcement officers and you try to take away their gun and you try to harm them, if you do that to the protectors, the people out there that are the front line who are out there protecting people, what would you do to those that aren't protected? What would you do to those that are going through a community at a playground, a shopping mall? So let me make that very clear. This is an extremely dangerous individual, and I don't care who he may be associated with or not, using whatever terms, terrorism, and I promise you, if I have information that something bad is going to happen in Pasco County, I will be absolutely the first person to announce what citizens need to do to protect themselves. When you ring the bell and you warn citizens that something bad is happening, you have to have some validation. You have to back it up. It's critical. You don't ring the bell just for the sake of ringing the bell. You ring the bell because you know you have very critical information. So I'm going to put that out there because I know there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of rumors. But hear from us first. This Pasco Sheriff's Office is going to do everything to protect you, and we will make sure your safety is paramount in everything we do. So going back to yesterday, 6 o'clock. Yesterday afternoon, there was a fight in the home. There was some smell. The mother smells some chemicals. The father starts ventilating the house. They get into a confrontation with their son, Sharif. Sharif then at that point pushes the father and the mother. There was an incident of domestic violence that had occurred. Later, fire rescue gets called around 6:20 a.m. And let me make this very clear. Pasco Fire Rescue, there was no signs to them that domestic violence had occurred. There was nothing so the firefighters did an outstanding job out there. Fire rescue transports the father to the hospital for medical reasons. Pasco Sheriff's Office is not called at that time. Sharif goes with the father to the hospital. So they're both at the hospital at this time. Mother's at home. Mother then calls family members who are out of the area. Those family members, she says she's scared. She's afraid of her son. There's been past history of domestic violence between the son beating the mother. So she calls family members. They then notify local law enforcement, which is us, the Pasco Sheriff's Office. Around 8 a.m., the Sheriff's Office goes out there, and it's primarily for a welfare check on the mother. Starts talking to the mother. They see signs of narcotics and other chemicals inside that kind of raise suspicion. At that time, Sharif Al-Ghanani comes back from the hospital where his father's still at. He sees the deputies. The deputies start talking to him. They start questioning him about some of the things that are in his room. At that time, they went to put handcuffs on him. As they put handcuffs on him, the fight breaks out. It turns into an extremely violent situation. I'm about to show you the video. During this incident, he tries to grab the gun and unholster the gun from the deputies. Tries to pull it out. They're fighting for their lives in this situation. Is a individual who has shown violence in the past. He's shown violence towards law enforcement now. And I keep reiterating, a dangerous person. Dangerous individual who wants to fight 2 deputies and try to take their gun. Who knows what his motive would have been once he got the gun. I can only speculate what he would have done. The deputies during the fight, one breaks his hand, the other one gets injuries to his head. I go, thank God they're okay. The rest of the deputies arrive. And as I go back to very clearly, if you attack a law enforcement officer, bad things will happen to you. Don't ever batter a law enforcement officer. That is one message we need to clearly get out there, because we are the protectors, and if we're not out there, there's nobody to protect you. So we will do everything in our power to make sure those individuals are taken into custody. So with that, let me just show you the video of the encounter which occurred.
There is some language in this, just for those going live.
Guys, don't put your cameras up, cell phones any higher, please.
Okay.
Come on over here, man.
but you can hear what was going on. You hear the gun, you hear the crackle, and that was the taser. As we go, again, I thank God those deputies are going to be home for Christmas. The other side of it too is, with that situation, make it very clear again, don't batter, put your hands on a Pasco deputy. We're going to win. I promise you that. So Sharif has been charged with Pasco Sheriff's Office with 2 times for domestic violence against his parents, 1 time for aggravated law enforcement officer, 1 time battery to law enforcement officer, and 2 times for resisting with violence. While the deputies were on scene, they said they continue to see some things that were suspicious. They smell the things that were suspicious, the same things that led the father early in the morning to open up the ventilation in the house. At that time, they notified Hillsborough County Bomb Unit, which I thank very much. Hillsborough County has done an outstanding job, and we appreciate their partnership. They also notified the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which came up. And then I go back to, again, the FBI, ATF, Homeland Security. Thank you for your partnership. It's continuing to go on, and I thank you very much for that. I'm going to make this statement, and I want to make sure everybody understands it. There were no ties, again, as I said, there's nothing that we can tie back to any terrorist group or anything like that. This is a statement Mom has made to our detectives, and so it's one of those things that we make sure we're going to get this out to the public so you hear it. You hear the truth, but at the same time you hear me also say we have not found any connections yet. Mom made statements to our detectives that when he gets mad, he says things to her like, I'm a terrorist or I'm part of ISIS. He throws those things at her. Now, Mom also said that, you know, he says these things when he's very angry. There's nothing we find that validates anything. But we're going to continue to search. We're going to continue to find out. The other thing that it says is that this individual is extremely dangerous. He made statements to us that he wanted to hurt himself and others. In the past, he's experimented with chemical devices. We found chemical precursors currently that were in his room last night. That leads me to believe and tell you, this is a very dangerous individual. I don't care what your race, color, creed, gender, sexual preference is. If you have an intent to harm other people, we consider you dangerous. I don't care if we use the word dangerous, you know, if it's a link that he's trying to cause harm for a greater good or for a greater purpose in his own eyes, well then we'll investigate it that way. We're going to go where the facts lead us. And the facts right now have led us that this is a very dangerous person. He's off the streets. Everybody in the community is safe. And we're going to continue hunting down leads as we go forward. Is there anybody questions?
Talk a little bit more about the chemical devices that you say he was in possession of. What kinds of things?
And unfortunately, right now, I can't go into that. As I said, there's going to be a lot of questions you have right now I can't get into. I can tell you there were chemicals out there. He was researching further how to make further chemical devices. He had made statements, you know, about these things. We are looking, I'll tell you right now, we're investigating computers, cell phones, any electronic means. We're trying to track down anybody he's associated with. We're doing every due diligence that you watch on those movies about how they hunt down and catch people. We're doing it. We're doing everything. I want every citizen out there, we're doing everything we can to track things down. But there's certain things I can't tell you. The violence that he demonstrated right there, we're working with our state attorney's office, and we believe we got a lot here to prosecute him, that they have a lot to prosecute him, and we hope he goes away for a very long time. On the other end, if there's other things that he was doing to try to harm others in the community, I don't want to say anything right now that's going to damage the case. I want to put this person away as long as they can, because it's clear they should not be out in the street.
But just to clarify, those chemicals that you found, those are not drug production chemicals, more along the lines of explosive device chemicals?
I would say the first. The chemicals we found were not precursors that we use for narcotics.
Is it the fact that he responded so violently to what seemed to be a pretty basic arrest is what's really kind of raising a flag with you?
That's part of it, raising the flag. Some of the things that we found inside the house raises the flag. And that's why I go back to, you know, this always goes back. We're not just going to turn a blind eye. These are not things, there's another part of this which is critical, is that everybody always talks about connecting dots. From 9/11, you read the commission report, they talk about connecting the dots. you have adopted, you have somebody who's making statements that our people heard. You have evidence out there that the average person doesn't have in their home. You start lining those up together, it starts, hey, scratching your head. There's things adding up. But there's one thing that we were able to do, is stop the dots from keep connecting. We were able, hopefully, and I believe so, from stopping an incident if he was going to continue down this path. Working with JTTF, FBI, everybody, we were able to work as a team. We're able to bring this person to custody, but things were lining up that would raise suspicion to a higher level.
So I want to be clear that I'm hearing this.
Yeah.
You didn't find anything that directly relates to terrorism, but you're still looking at it as if it possibly could be?
We're looking at every angle. We're still searching computers. We're still searching everything. I mean, if I told you right now I'm only investigating this and just narrow the focus, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence.
So
It's still a wide lane right now.
Terrorism hasn't been ruled out, though.
It's not ruled out, but it's not one of those things that the rabbit holes are possibly leading down that way.
What kind of, you said you've had dealings with him in the past. Does he have a previous record?
Osceola. I'm sorry, Osceola Sheriff's Office, Osceola Law Enforcement. That's where his past has been. A lot of it is Osceola. He has a long juvenile record from over there, but he has domestic, and I apologize to clarify, law enforcement in general has dealt with him in the past.
Okay.
So, and it's been in Osceola.
But he has no record here in
No.
Pasco.
Can you talk about what kind of record he has in Osceola?
Yeah, the one is domestic batteries, and one was aggravated domestic battery with strangulation. That's what I said. This is not. This person has committed violent crime, and when you have issues, when you have somebody who committed very violent crime, you have things that lead up to harming other people. It's gonna raise suspicion. And when you make statements, even though the mother said, during anger times he says these things, you have to look down it. If you don't look at any piece of evidence and you discard it, we're wrong. But at the same time, I'm going to be truthful and tell you nothing right now is shown that it's a connection to terrorism.
Can you run down the charges again?
Yes. The Pasco charges are 2 counts for domestic violence, 1 count for aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer.
Ag-bad on a Leo.
Yep. Another charge for battery on Leo.
Bat on Leo.
And 2 times for resisting with violence.
2 counts resisting with violence.
Yes, sir.
Whether you find that direct link or not to terrorism, just isn't what you said kind of speak to that homegrown radicalized person that?
And that's what we got to keep finding more evidence. And that's why I said, same as ISIS, Al-Shabaab, KKK. I mean, it doesn't matter who you claim or who you ideologue with or who you want to belong to. It could be one person trying out there to create their own cause. To us, they're a dangerous person. Until we find out exactly the motive, I can't say it was a terrorist reason until we find the clear evidence. And we don't have that clear evidence for the reason, but I can tell you he's a dangerous person. I would not want our family members, our citizens in a shopping center, in a bus, in a Publix, anywhere with this person.
What have you learned about his personal life? Was he working? Like, what does he do?
Yeah, we're still trying to investigate that right now. We're trying to find out who he associates with, why he was staying. This is a 55-plus community, how long he's been staying there. This is real. Yesterday, the focus was on the imminent threat, what we had. Today is unraveling all the pieces. We have him. He's not on the streets, and so that's why we can now methodically go through the process and investigate it.
Did he make statements that were sympathetic to any type of Islamic terrorist group or anything?
I've gotten bits of information from the detectives. We haven't had anything, and that's the one thing we keep asking: is there a direct tie? One of the concerns for us was, you have this individual. There's a possibility. We're looking from the very beginning. We were looking, saying, "Is anything ties to it?" And then the one thing is there a connection? So we were trying to work as rapidly as we could to find out, was there anybody else this person's associated with? Could this person's possible arrest set off anything else? There's nothing else. There's nothing to link that. There was nothing to show that. But we were sprinting. We were sprinting as hard and as fast as we could within the legal limits. That's the other thing too, is we had to make sure, we follow the Constitution. And so we had to follow the Constitution as we go through this investigation. We're going to continue because we don't want to lose anything when it goes to court.
Has he had any violent outbursts since he's been in custody?
Not that I know of. It wouldn't be good for him.
Sure. Are there going to be any additional charges as a result of the explosives?
That's part of the investigation right now.
How are the deputies doing?
They're doing okay. We have feedback. We're working with them right now, making sure their families, and this goes back to another thing. Post-traumatic stress disorder for law enforcement is not spoken about enough, but it is something. Think about that, you know, not only for the deputies, for what they go through, but the family members. This is part of law enforcement. It's not spoken about, but it's tragic and needs to be spoken about. It's the PTSD for law enforcement and our families.
Do they go on any kind of leave after an incident like
Yes,
this?
they're going to be on leave. I mean, besides the injuries, we want to make sure that they're okay to come back to work. But any leave that they need, we're going to work with them on because, yeah, when they come back, unfortunately, the reality is they may end up in a fight like that again.
And you said one has a broken bone in his hand.
Yes.
And the other one
had head injuries.
had a head injury.
Yeah.
Both of them minor.
Minor, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, minor. Yeah, no, relatively minor, yeah,
Yeah.
compared to what they could have happened,
Okay.
absolutely. But, yeah, good point.
So we hear him several times talking about his gun on the video. But was it unholstered or on the ground? Was he trying to?
No. We have a secured holsters, but he kept trying to reach for it. He thought he could do it, but he couldn't manipulate unholstering it. But that's why you keep hearing that about the gun. But that's why actually during this incident, one of the tasers, I believe, the deputy actually, one was shooting it, the other one got hit by part of it, so he got tased in the incident. So the fight was on, and I go back to it. He's a dangerous individual. If you're willing to hurt a law enforcement officer, you have no remorse, and you have the will to hurt anybody in our society. That's why we draw the line in the sand, and we mean it when we draw the line in the sand, is that if you try to harm a law enforcement officer, it's not going to be a good day for you. All right? Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. Thank
Sheriff.
you.
Make that video available on our YouTube site.